sessions where authorities are talking about their own sorts of experiences so that they can learn from one another. AFI, the Alliance for Financial Inclusion, the IMF is running an increasing range of these at the regional level where people discuss sort of common approaches, and particularly at the regional level where you're thinking about getting regional data, you need to have sort of common approaches or you end up with problems. And likewise, if we think of the BIS launching a new sort of innovation hub with one in Singapore, one in Hong Kong in this region. So I think an increasing range of aspects where at the regional level, there's possibilities to talk about experiences and also think about the way that data can be harmonized as well as shared. Yeah.
Thanks. I just heard about this regional. I'm actually a little confused about this data bit. Is it going to be country-wise? Is it going to be region-wise? Is it going to be global? In my previous session, I just heard in cybersecurity that there is just one cyberspace. So my understanding is there should be one standardized rule for the globe. The data goes into the same. It's a cross-border transaction system. Everyone has to follow the same. If everyone doesn't follow the same, then it's God help. And if you have to do this, then probably you have to get these 193 odd countries which meet every year for the climate conference for the last 25 years. It's 25 years now. This will take another 50 years. Second, well, that's a big doubt. Now, I remember before you answered the previous point which you answered, you mentioned that the regulator should step in first, try and standardize the format in which the data should be collected. All the while I was sitting in this session since the beginning and thinking, shouldn't the regulator come and advance, do all this beforehand? Even the policies, even the regulation, or the entire booklet is written. Whatever is the regulation as per the existing currencies, what we live in. Maybe every clause has to have a parallel for the digital world, and then the business starts. But here what I see is the business started all over. And these regulations, the regulators are still discussing how to do it, where to do it. By the time they get collected to do it, God help, this would be like miles away. So how will one catch up in all this? Are we heading in this good direction? I know we are talking of fintech. I attended a agri-tech. There's a lot of these terminologies happening. The common factor is data. And the common factor is hacking as well. So God help. We are actually trying to feed in a lot of more hackers to join in and create a lot more problems. Then even our current world, which we live in, is a big mess. And we are trying to create a data parallel and create a bigger mess. Eventually, I think these extinction rebellions will prove correct. We need to extinct so that all these AIs can take over and play around with this data. That's it.
Yeah. I'll give a quick answer, then see if anyone else wants to jump in. I think the cybersecurity point is very well made, that when you're collecting, when you're designing systems, you have to think of that from the outset. On the standardization issue, this is something where it's not new. If we think of disclosure standards for securities, it's been a multi-decade process to get sort of harmonized disclosure issues. Or if we think of accounting standards, it's been a multi-decade process to get to sort of harmonized accounting standards. Or if I talk about central bank disclosure of things like reserves data, that dates from really, even before the Asian financial crisis. So, data standardization processes are something that we've been doing for a long period of time. And yeah, they take time, but it's one of those things that it is the case that the more comparable information is, the more useful it is to everyone, and also the cheaper it is for many parties to process. Others, quick answers.
Yeah, I mean, I think, if you look at a point you made there, if you look at the problems of AML, for example, right? Why do we still have so many problems? There's less than 2% of fraudulent transactions are caught. Well, because each bank is looking at their transactions. Each regulator is looking at some of their transactions. I mean, the only way, if I'm a fraudster, am I really going to go and, am I really going to go into one bank in one country and use it? No, I'm going to go and work across borders, work in multiple different ways, use, and I think there's a point about data privacy and sharing data, and then there's a point about can we really catch the fraudsters as well if we're not sharing data. So it's I don't know that a catch-22, but I mean you have to have secure cyber security. You have to have secure methods of sharing data. You have to make sure you're not sharing personal data across borders. We've got GDPR in Europe, for example. But if we don't share data and if we don't sort of do this, then I think we're sort of leaving ourselves open to more of this financial crime. So I don't know. I mean, I think the technology is getting there now, where we can see it should be possible, as long as quantum computing doesn't catch up, for example. But like, it should be possible to securely share data. But there's issues about ownership of data as well. You know, I own my data, so I should, but I don't today, for example.
I get the point, but there's cross-border transaction involved here. So it has to be a consensus, unless, I mean, or we could lead up into a situation where one country says, well, the president changes, I walk out of the entire thing. Then slowly one more, one adds, one goes out. It'll be a mess. This is data linked to our lives. And this is not just data. We are living that.
Exactly.
So there would be situations where material things will just stop. So somebody has to sit down collectively, globally in fact, and figure out, is this the way to go? We've already started, we spent years on it. Shall we stop here? Shall we go ahead? Because technology, once we take an instance where everyone agrees, the entire world agrees, 193 odd countries, whatever, all the data is digitized, standard set, the data is there. And these hackers come in, or some kind of things start happening, then what will happen? There is no parallel system existing. Everyone adopts to technology like this, and that stops. God help. No insurance claims, no bank transaction somewhere, no delivery of food somewhere, no agriculture somewhere. So I think, I may sound pessimistic, but I think I'm making sense.
And I think that's a huge point. And I spend just as much time thinking about how everything could go really wrong as I think about how it could go well. And the thing is, if we don't think about how it could all go wrong and we try to do something about it, then we're guaranteed that those bad outcomes are going to happen. And so for me, civilization is about trying to avoid those bad outcomes. We may not always do it, but if we don't try, we're failing. Yeah, please, welcome.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Paul. I'm from the Philippines, private sector here in the Philippines. And I'm thankful for giving me an opportunity and also for sharing your best practices, and especially to Mr. Kim for his experience in Korea. And my question is from application and also from the reality aspect. My question is about what is your RegTech views about the VUCA economy. It means volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. How the existing companies like banks, small-scale lendings, micro-insurances can survive this kind of setup, and also how we will harmonize those things from the existing system, and also from financial technology, how we can, how we can work it together. Not separately, not to disrupt everything, because we need to work together. This is what I think. And also another thing is for the ADB, for Mr. Peter, I just want to know about your views about planning for leading the developing member countries to to make some assistance using the financial technology, cryptocurrency, if ever. I'm looking forward for any views that you are looking for the future, how we will assist and how we will be more inclusive for the projects of Asian Development Bank. Thank you.
Quick answer from Youngtae and Peter. Well,
as you mentioned, I think the RegTech, SupTech, and FinTech also consist of another ecosystem. Yeah, it's from the regulatory aspect. So I think RegTech is a bridge between FinTech and SupTech. So RegTech play a role of digital backbone. So I mean, if RegTech, SupTech are well established, it makes a lot of positive impact on the fintech, and as you mentioned, the small insurance company and like this. So yeah. So, but it is right now. It's very difficult to boom up the third-party RegTech company because there is no regulation background. So, long term, we are considering the license to the RegTech company. Yeah. So, if some company or small fintech company use the RegTech system of the approved by the supervision RegTech system, we don't need to examine all the stability of the financial institution or RegTech, the insurance company. So we just confirm that they use the appropriate RegTech system. Yes. Yeah.
Thanks so much for your questions. Just very quickly, so yes, of course, ADB takes this very seriously. The dimension of technology is enshrined in ADB Strategy 2030, so we really look at a lot of issues relating to technology and how to harness the benefits of technology, and of course also relating to financial inclusion, as you were mentioning. So yes, we take this seriously, both from the knowledge side. We really like to investigate what are the enabling factors that are driving, for instance, financial inclusion, how can technology help? And that knowledge we try to share at policy forums and to discuss with regional policy makers. And of course, we can also run projects. So if you think about, for instance, regulatory sandboxes or let's say pilot projects, ADB already ran a few. For instance, just to name one, there's a cloud-based banking system in the Philippines, Katilan Bank, mainly based in Mindanao, as you know, very remote area. A lot of people sort of excluded from formal financial services. And this is, of course, also a means through which ADB can support not only financial inclusion, but also gaining insights through those pilots, which then can inform other policymakers, again, can be discussed in policy forums. So you'll be heavily engaged in a lot of these issues, knowledge, projects, and sharing and dissemination.
Thank you. And I think, unfortunately, despite the discussion going on very well, it's time to bring it to a close. I'd like to thank all of my panelists. I'd also like to thank all of you, and in particular those of you who've come and joined the discussion. I think I'd just like to leave you with one thought, and that is the technology is increasingly there to design better regulatory systems and better financial systems. But it all requires that we think about our roles, particularly in the official sector, in a different way. How can we do things in a better way, and how can we use technology to better achieve our objectives? And a final shot from the RegTech book, RegTech is not just financial services, it's technology in any aspect of the economy. If you would, join me in thanking all of our panelists and in thanking our guests in the front row.
Sorry that we are actually the one blocking the wall because they have to rearrange the room and everybody else cannot rearrange without us leaving. Sorry so much. So thank you very much for joining the Fishbowl. Thank you very much, Douglas. Please take your things. We're going to rearrange. Have a coffee.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, it worked. I was nervous whether it would.